Alright, here's my reaction and breakdown to UFC Fight Night Salkilld versus Gamrot. And starting off the preliminary card, Gigi Canuto versus Carol Ferro. This was a scrap, I won't lie. Canuto drops the first, not too much happened. She got her takedown stuff, she got struck pretty easily, but she was still in it. She made it, she made it, competitive. Round 2, gets a shot, gets a takedown. I'm pretty sure it was a double leg, maybe, or it was one of those running into the opponent, like knee. I think it was called a knee drop or something, knee shield or something like that. It was one of those kind of takedowns. She gets it, controls Ferro for the most of the round. Completely dominates her for the rest of the round, just on her back, punching, trying to chase a sub. Round 3, Canuto looks gassed. She's, huffing, puffing a little. The body work from Ferro was pretty good. And she was beating her up. And, in the early portion, the first minute, then Canuto shot another one of the... She shot into the cage, capitalized it, turned her over, got the takedown, but Ferro got right back up, back on the, that pressure, punch her up. Canuto gets into the clinch, tries to hold her for a bit. Ferro, just breaks off, starts smacking her up. And then, Canuto looked gassed, failing takedowns. Just couldn't quite get to where, she needed the fight to be. She didn't look terrible. She had a decent showing for, a debutant. But the cardio, man, she's just gassed. The bodywork from Ferro was very sneaky, tricked her into exchanges. Canuto had some moments, the second round was her biggest moment, She had some moments on the feet in the third. Ferro, man, she's a problem. Strawweight's got a new contender. Carol Ferro. Although her, her power punching kind of did disappear ever since, she popped for, diuretics, but, it's probably just some after thing. Maybe Canuto's just tough as nails. Moving on, Juliana Miller versus Ravina Oliveira. I went with Juliana Miller. She beat Ravina Oliveira quite easily. She got the trip takedowns. She had the size advantage. Immediately won the fight. Not immediately. Oliveira made it a little competitive in the first, but most of the time she got taken down and just, held there. Just some classic WMMA skill level type stuff. Then Ravina Oliveira in the second tries to come out a little, tries to get something off, immediately gets taken down, and then her back taken and then subbed by a rear naked choke. Pretty clear cut Ravina Oliveira. Juliana Miller, you're on thin ice, but you're good for right now. Moving on, Miles Johns versus Johnny Vasquez. This was a scrap as well. Like, this card was pretty good. The UFC website is down, however, so I can't do this. I'm getting this out quite quickly for the folks out there. Miles Johns, man, he got clipped early. He got into a firefight with Vasquez, got clipped early. Running in, trying to hit him with he spammed the right hand over and over till it landed. And Johnny Vasquez, man, you can't trust the guy who got dropped by Javid Bashrat, the decision maker, but, you can't be Johnny Vasquez and be scummy, He was talking about I took his contract, but then immediately also got cut. And just lost. Probably going to get cut 2 times in a row. Man. Miles Johns, he came back with the power. I didn't know he could have that kind of power at featherweight. Maybe he's moving, maybe he's staying at bantam, but I'm not quite sure on that specifically. Maybe he's going back down to bantamweight. I don't know, but he looked decent. He did get dropped, which was a little concerning early on, but, he just made a firefight, clips Johnny Vasquez over the top, drops him, gets stat guard, just pounds his head in. Just his head bounced off the canvas a few times, put him away, put him to sleep. Fight was over. Put Johnny Vasquez to sleep in a firefight. Good fight. Both had moments. Vasquez, he clipped him early. Then Miles Johns immediately recovered like that. Came back with a big meaty hook. Dropped Johnny Vasquez. And that's all she wrote. Moving on. Manuel Souza versus Richie Miranda. This one was this one was interesting. Richie Miranda takes the first with the back take. Made it competitive. Nah, not even competitive. It was more one-sided around. It was more one-sided. Miranda took the first. Classic Manuel Souza taking off the first, slow starting. Drops the first to Richie Miranda. Richie Miranda had him in some trouble, He had him in some trouble. But then again, this is Manuel Souza. This isn't your average regional scrub. So, Richie Miranda takes the first. Then comes the second. I believe Manuel Souza had some nasty leg kicks early on. I think in the first round, I believe. I didn't get to see the first, unfortunately. But I saw the second and third. And I believe they were saying something on commentary how Manuel Souza was cooking up that guy's leg. Or that Richie Miranda was limping. Something with leg kicks, I'm pretty sure. Could have been something else. Come round two, Souza just hammers some really good low kicks that, get Richie Miranda's attention for sure. And from that point onward, his output slowed significantly. His footwork, his speed, just crashing. He tried to make it competitive, but you could clearly tell that he was hurting from those low kicks. You could tell by the way he was moving. Like, he kind of was plodding. He didn't look the greatest after that. And then he kept it competitive for a little. Then he got dropped by a nasty body shot from Souza. Drops him. Looks like he gets finished. Almost is getting finished. Then Souza got a little too overzealous. Miranda turned him over into a takedown. Got it. At the end of the round. Near the end of the round. And that was pretty good from Miranda. That's just like the grit and determination he has. Going through all of it. And then the third round comes. Round 2 is all Souza, but round 3 was a lot more competitive, I'd say, number-wise. Miranda, he came out and he tried to fight through all the pain, but the body wouldn't let him. He was just too slow to keep up with Souza. But he had Souza in the clinch. Souza kept hammering the low kicks. Stopped after, I believe, the first minute of the round. The corner told him to stay off the cage or something like that, I believe. Or keep it away, keep his back away from the cage. And just, he did what he had to do, and he did what he did, He got the decision win. He almost had to finish that second round, man. But Richie Miranda, he's a tough fucker. Even at the end of the round, Manuel Souza landed a nasty spinning elbow right on his dome. Right on the chin, I'm pretty sure, as well. It was a nasty spinning elbow. And Miranda, he grit down and ate that shit. All credits to Richard Miranda, man. He's a dog. Moving on. Louis Sutherland versus Jose Montana. We'll just call him Jose. I had Louis Sutherland here. I probably shouldn't have taken him because Taito Iwasa is pretty bad. But people forget, man. I don't know who the other guy is, but he has some missions, I don't know what happened, because it looked like Montana. Well, I'm not going to stay. Jose here had looked like a face crank from the back mount. And he had it, it kind of was slipping, and then Sutherland immediately tapped. I mean, come on, bro. But Sutherland initiate the grappling, he immediately blobs his way towards him, falls over, tried to fat man roll Jose here, ended up immediately getting his back taken, immediately got submitted less than 2 minutes in, exceeded all my expectations, 100%. Sutherland, man. What happened to the crafty guy tied to Iwasa? No, I'm playing. I didn't know this Jose guy got that kind of game. I wasn't familiar with your game, Jose. Credit to you, man. You got the blob master out of there. Good shit from Jose. He had a good performance. Immediately subbing Sutherland. Ain't no joke. He's a crafty blob. Moving on, Dr. Nurgajai versus Bruno Lopez. I had Nurgajai. The battle of the mid bums. Nurgajai, he comes out with the tippy-tappy low kicks, getting his way ready, Then bam! Catches Lopez with, I believe it was a head kick, or it was a straight down the pipe. It was one of those two from my memory. And then Lopez is wobbly-bobbling all over, fucking trying to shoot takedowns. Almost got Nurgajai down for a second, but he's too wobbly. Then he's fumbling all over, wobbling all over the octagon. It was pretty tippy-tappy, slow starting round. Then he's wobbling all over. He's fucking forgetting where he left his car keys, just wobbling all over. He gets clipped again, eats it, keeps wobbling all over. Then he's on the cage with his hands, like his guard is open. So he's trying to cover his temples. He's not trying to cover his face. He gets clipped with a shovel-looking uppercut, or one of those, those straight uppercuts. Gets clipped by it, put down. He was trying to wrestle up, gets stopped with 1 second to go. A good performance from Nurgajai. Back-to-back wins. Nurgajai, man. How do you lose to Haberio, but beat... actually... They both lost to Haberio. Whoops. Good performance from Nurgajai. Not the greatest, but good performance. Good finish. I'll leave it at that. Not a performance. He kind of was playing the low kick game early. One go at it. Catches Bruno Lopez. Makes him fumbly bumbly. Then he's falling on his ass. He's fucking hitting the cage. Fucking running the ropes. Good stuff from Nurgajai. Steven Asplund versus Guilherme Pat. Or I'll just call him Pat. I'm not going to try to pronounce his first name. Steven Asplund, he drops Pat with a big right hand. Competitive first before that, though. Drops Pat. Keeps Pat down, but then Pat, he gets up. He gets up. Recovers. Gets in the clinch. There was a lot of clinching in this one, to be honest. Asplund came out, he looked like a blob, to be honest. This fight, he looked like a blob. Did I think he was going to look like a blob? No, but he did. That cardio he had in the Shanshara fight, I think that was mostly because when you're landing, you don't get that tired. But when he wasn't really landing like that, Got to keep that in mind. He did beat up Pat's face. They both got cut open in that first round, I'm pretty sure. Either Asplund got cut in the first or the second. Pat's recovered in the second, comes back, pieces up Asplund for most of it. He didn't give Asplund a second of a moment. He pieces up him for the whole round, pretty much. Cuts open his face. He's gushing out blood. Pat's also bleeding, and his eye is pretty swollen on the sides, The eyelid and the under his eye was pretty swollen. We had some clinch action that round. Some classic blob against the Cajun. Blobbing. In round 3, we got a lot of blobbing, Asplund, he head kicked Pat. Rocked him. Got him in that high elbow guillotine with, I believe, 2 minutes to go. Gets him that high elbow guillotine. I thought that was it, to be honest. When you're hurt, you're discombobulated, and he gets a high elbow guillotine. Almost subs him. He gets out of the sub, which I couldn't believe myself. Then we're back to blobbing on the cage. What a way to ruin it, guys. Right back to blobbing on the cage immediately after. They both had some moments. Pat was trying to recreate the second. Asplund won 1 in 3, I'm pretty sure. Clearly, 1 in 3. It was a competitive fight till the end, I'd say. A lot of blobbing, though, on the cage. It's okay, though. Asplunders stand up, guys. Alright. Billy Ray Goff versus Ty Miller. I picked Ty Miller. I even said in the prediction video. Billy Ray Goff has literally no way to victory here. And what do you know? He had no way to victory. He couldn't box or wrestle for shit this fight. over a year layoff was probably a little too much. Ty Miller, man, he had good takedown defense, He looked good out there. He was, for the first round, Billy Ray Goff was shooting them takedowns. Got him on the cage. Ty Miller piecing him up with the jab, just, boxing him up a bit. Clips him a little. Causes some swelling on Billy Ray's eye. Defends most takedowns. Got taken down for a second, I believe. Just a little stumble type takedown. Then comes round 2. All Ty Miller just piecing him up. I'm surprised Billy Ray got to the 3rd. He just got pieced up the entire time. His coaches literally told him to circle. Like, what kind of advice is that? Circle? That's all you got? Don't try to, hey, here's what we should do to get some punches off. No, just try to run away from him. Survive as long as possible. Get that paycheck. Like, what are we doing here? Gets pieced up for the 2nd. Then comes the 3rd. Oh, some nasty elbows in the 2nd. Ty Miller just puts it on him, boxes him up, like pad work, puts him down. And that was all she wrote. Billy Ray gassed. He was so tired after the 2nd. You could clearly tell he was tired. Got pieced up for the rest of that, the entire 2nd, 3rd. And pretty much the entire fight got pieced up. Billy Ray could not box or wrestle. Ty Miller, man, he looked good, man. Who does that to Billy Ray? Who does that? Come on. Oh, wait. Ramiz Brahima? Who's that? I'm joking. Amanda Lemos versus Alexia Thainara. It was, as you would imagine, Thainara, copying all the game plans, cuddling on the cage a little. They struck, they struck. The first round was some cage cuddling, What is a women's fight without it? Thainara took the smart approach to the fight. I'm very shocked. She didn't get her to the ground that much, but, actually, I'm not really that shocked. Lemos doesn't really seem like the most physically imposing fighter. Some cage cuddling, some early on, Lemos had her hands down, probably to defend takedowns. Oh, what the hell? Okay, we're back. Thought I glitched out. Sorry. Amanda Lemos, tried her best to defend everything, too worried about it, like always. Thainara, took the first. 2nd round comes around. Lemos drops Thainara with a overhand, I believe, or a big hook. Drops Thainara, has her all jelly-legged to, near the end of the round. Thainara gets the desperate clinch, gets the clinch, hugs her on the cage for the rest of it. Lemos breaks free for the last, 15 seconds. Then, they break off. Round 3. Most cage cuddling, for sure, from Thainara. But she had some decent striking. It looked like Lemos slipped, but it could have been a few, 2 drops, 2 knockdowns. Some, classic cage cuddling. What is the UFC without cage cuddling? What's a Amanda Lemos fight without cage cuddling? You know what I'm saying? At the end of the fight, the last 10 seconds, all credit due, they scrapped it out for the rest of that fight. Lemos finally broke off the cage. Then they scrapped it out. She had to do something. Pretty competitive fight. I thought Lemos would definitely have the experience advantage. But Thainara proves that she is the real deal. And that proved it right there. Well, now let's give her a title shot, UFC. Jillian Robertson. It's crazy. Darren Elkins versus Yadier Del Valle. I'm glad to see Unk retire, but God, man. What was the plan? He was never winning this fight. Immediately, Unk he's trying to feel it out, he's getting the groove, and then pop! Big overhand, or big hook. That was all she wrote. Just drops him bad. He falls like a grandpa off his walker. I feel so bad for Elkins, but man, you should have just retired after the last one against Arosa, man. Immediately gets clipped, gets dropped, some ground and pound. That's all she wrote. You know, that's all it was. You know, mic drop. End of the fight. Del Valle, man. I mean, it is Darren Elkins, but man, this guy he seems like a problem, but then he loses to Jordan Levitt, 30-27. So, with the right matchups, we could see him become something for sure. Good performance from Del Valle. I guess you can give credit where it's due, but it is 42-year-old Darren Elkins, you know. Unk did not still have it. Clearly after his last one. He tried the Unk gimmick, immediately got chinned. The damage added up. I hope he, takes retirement well. He should not be fighting anymore. Moving on. Billy Q versus Diego Ferreira. CDF. I won't even lie to y'all. I was laughing the entire fight. It looked like two drunk uncles fighting. And that's with all due respect. Ferreira was the only one technical. Billy Q actually looked like somebody's drunk uncle. He I don't even know what he was doing. He kept doing that weird cross guard, half cross guard. Just blocks, a little bit of his face, then immediately just try to counter with a hook each time he got hit. I don't know what his plan was. I had Billy Q here. I just started laughing. It was so funny. These two grandpas just going at it. These old unks. Just an unk fest. I thought Billy Q's lighter man skill had it. But CDF looked good, He looked crisp. For those first two rounds, he looked crisp. Especially those front kicks were money. He was mostly on the back foot the entire fight. He dropped Billy Q with the knee to the body. I did not notice that. He dropped into a takedown. Missed the takedown. Stuffs it, beats on him a little. Then Billy Q got up. Starts punching him up a little. Then immediately gets countered. Anything but put his hands up the entire fight. Second round was definitely better for Billy. CDF's, he didn't look like he had much power, to be honest. Like, it kind of didn't affect Billy Q too much. But when you put on more weight, the spinal fluid around your head, increases. So that could have been a reason why it didn't seem like too much. But, he put it on him still. Billy Q had a better round, but, he got clipped up. Got a few visible, little stumbles from Billy and CDF. You could see Unk, stumbling a little after some shots. Pretty clear first two from CDF, in my opinion. Controlled most of the fight. He was on the back foot most of the time as well. But he was good off of it. He landed some good front kicks, that skimmed the face of Billy. Landed some good 1-2, 1-2 uppercut combos. He was kind of styling. He was in the groove. Round 3. They get into some exchanges. Billy Q starts taking over, in my opinion. I thought he clearly, he was taking over very obviously. But CDF, man, he still kept landing the combos. He didn't, look like he couldn't keep going like Rebecca did in the end of their fight, He still was going. He didn't look like super duper tired. This is the fight we're focusing on, guys. He didn't look too tired, Let me see if the website is finally up. Nope. Yeah, $1 billion company, folks. $1 billion company. He keeps going. Billy Q's walking down Ferreira. Then at the end of the round, he shoots a sloppy takedown. Gets his body beat in a little. Billy Q tries to knee his body, his ribs. CDF shut that shit down immediately by blocking him. Unk was punching him. Then he, gets guard at the end. He's stacking him. He's laying some good heavy punches. Some punches. Heavy punches. Some punches on CDF, CDF looked up at the clock with 2 minutes to go. I know he was huffing and puffing. But, he still kept up that pace. And at 42 years old, the fact these two fought at that pace, at this age, near 40, by the way, both of them, is pretty crazy. Y'all are almost, you're Unk age now. Y'all are Unks. The fact Billy Q kept going, mad respect, bro. That is crazy work. even though it was 2 years off, like, sometimes your cardio ain't the same after getting cold like you did against Cub. But he looked a bit better chin wise, but he has some kind of issues going on for sure. I don't know why he didn't keep his hands up. Maybe he's just accustomed to it, but I don't know what he was thinking. Like, the entire fight, he kept doing the cross guard with the hand out, like some... Like, that's all I was saying. Like, that's real unk shit, where you're trying to cross guard, and then you're trying to hook immediately after. Like, that's some old school boxing shit. That's some real old shit, I thought. He looked like an unk. CDF was, defensively responsible most of the fight, but he was getting clipped by that same right hand. Showed zero adjustments to that. He was still getting hit by it somehow. You would think he would immediately counter it after, the first round, but CDF took the first with a takedown at the end. He took it again with the cleaner striking in the second. Then the third. Now, the judges gave all three to CDF, but in my eyes, I thought Billy won, like, the last minute of the fight. On top of, he was clipping him a little. He was punching him up. But CDF was way more, calculated than Billy was the entire time. So I can see why he didn't win it. But the body language at the end of it for sure should have given him it, on one judge scorecard, But I can see why you would give all three to CDF. Cleaner, more effective in some ways. He made Billy stumble a bit. Both unks made each other stumble. It was a good fight, It wasn't the greatest fight. It was, it was a decent decision, I will say. It was a decent decision, At least Billy tried to finish something. I don't know why he didn't just go for a sub when you have CDF clearly gassed. Billy has some CTE, bro. He has something going on in that head that we just don't know about, but they were asking when his son's birthday was in the corner, like, he did anything but listen to the coaches, but hey, who am I to judge? Good performance from CDF to come back from getting knocked out. Billy didn't look half bad, but he didn't look very smart. He really did look like an unk at a cookout. Like, the cross guard, trying to punch with the other hand. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? Come on, what are we doing? Moving on. Mateusz Gamrot versus Quillen Salkilld. Quillen Salkilld, the real deal. I won't ever question him again. Okay? I'll bet you this. I'll pick him in his next fight. No matter who it is. The way he just did Gamrot, okay, I'll break it down. Gamrot, he comes out, some jabs. He's hitting Quillen a little. Quillen, throws some kicks to the body. Throws his 1-2. Gamrot throws a jab going forward, then Quillen check hooks him or left hooks him, drops him or hurt him at the very least from what I remember. I believe it was a knockdown. Drops Gamrot, jumps on him. Gamrot shows that recovery once again of immediately going to the legs, specifically shooting under his opponent's, basically under his opponent's crotch. Grabbing the foot. They get into a scramble, okay? Mateusz Gamrot, he still has that leg. He's holding on for dear life. They get to the cage. Quillen's behind him, has back clinch. Gamrot goes for that scramble. Quillen does good, meets him at the scramble. But Gamrot still had his leg, mind you. He rolled for the leg. He got him, and he almost had him in a heel hook, but he didn't have the angle. And Quillen, he turned over, got to the side, broke out of it, but it looked decently in, and Gamrot was squeezing. And he got cut open in that exchange, and you could see the blood squirt out of his head onto the canvas. And he immediately went for that ankle lock, and he did so much for it. But then he immediately scrambled again, And Gamrot, he tried to, and then he got back up to his feet. Probably not the greatest idea. They got back up to the feet for a second. Then another scramble. And then Quillen, man, he looked dominant in this fight. I believe he hurt Gamrot again. That forced another shot. I don't quite remember if he got clipped again or if it was a shot from. It was a shot from Salkilld, I think. I believe. Yes, it was a shot from Salkilld. Then, he, scrambles with Gamrot again, and he reverses him. Gets the back of Gamrot. He's pounding Gamrot's head in. And the Gamrot, he leaves his hands open lazily, trying to block the side of his head. Salkilld gets that nasty, face crank like Oliveira. Got it. He's got it, on the back. Then he rolls over Gamrot. That was it. Salkilld, man. The fact he ran through Gamrot just like that is insane. No one does that to Gamrot unless you're a real top contender in the lightweight division. Like, Arman had lost a decision to Gamrot. Dan Hooker, close decision with Gamrot. Oliveira finished him, but, Gamrot made it competitive, made it to the second. Oh, man, that is crazy. This Salkilld might be the truth. People who beat Gamrot sometimes, they got that talent in them. I say do Salkilld versus Holloway if Holloway's not trying to wait out for the Conor rematch. Pointless ass rematch. Nobody needs to see that again. Salkilld versus BSD, maybe? I think you should do Salkilld versus Holloway title eliminator. That makes more sense to me than Benoit. I guess Benoit would be a little higher ranked, but I would imagine Salkilld being number 9 to 8. Probably number 9. Hopefully the UFC doesn't do no fuck shit. But yeah, Salkilld is legit. He's legit. He is a problem. He's going to be a big problem for the rest of those guys. I think the only one who really could stand a chance is Oliveira. Arman might. He could possibly, The way Salkilld looked out there against Gamrot, man. Like, it was next level. But I think the only one who could really hold a light to him would be Oliveira. Arman would be an interesting matchup. Especially the way he holds full guard, But Salkilld isn't Dan Hooker, and he just beat the guy who beat you. Holloway, Pimblett, those are interesting fights as well. Pimblett especially. But Pimblett and Salkilld kind of have that same level of, goofy, looking striking when you look at it. Like, Salkilld doesn't have the crispiest striking. So, but, that's sometimes you have to match that sloppiness. And he exceeded my expectations entirely. I wasn't too sold, you beat, Dariush, okay? You beat Dariush. But beating Gamrot as a prospect, kind of, a ranked guy, he could be the next champ. I wouldn't even doubt it. If they put him against Rufus right now, I would pick Salkilld. I don't know how confident I would be, but I would pick Salkilld. Oliveira, that's a 50-50 matchup in my opinion. We could be speaking too soon on some Dariush shit, but you know what? Fuck it. This guy could be the next champ. I think he will be the next champ. If he gets the right matchups, he definitely could be the right champ. If he got Holloway, or if he got BSD in his next fights, those are pretty good matchups for Salkilld. And it breathes life into the lightweight division. We had Gamrot smashing Ludovic Klein and Esteban Ribovic, just destroying these prospects. And finally, Salkilld has been the one. He might be the chosen one. The one to break through it all. He's legit. I'm excited. He's actually gonna be something. I know he is. He's the future. The Aussie is the future. I picked Gamrot. Seems dumb now, but at the time, we're talking about Gamrot's, how's Salkilld gonna do with the grappling? Salkilld out-grappled him! He forced the grappling. Like, who does that? To Gamrot. That isn't Charles Oliveira. You know what I mean? Like, that is crazy shit. Drops him, beats him up. Like, that's so crazy. Subs him in a round. Looking over this card. Man. Souza called out Drew Dober. Asplund called out Jamal Hill at the the presser. Ty Miller called for bonuses. Don't do it if you want a bonus. Dinara, I don't believe she called anyone out. Del Valle, he gave his speech to Jesus Christ, I believe. Or Christianity in general. CDF, man, he was talking about how he's an unk. Talking some unk shit. Salkilld called out top 5. Fuck it. Give them Holloway. I've seen enough. You know what I'm saying? I've seen enough. It was a good night of fights. I thoroughly enjoyed them all. I, however, did not believe they were going to do all these, though. You know what I mean? Like, this fight was on super short notice. So was this one. Good card. Thank y'all for watching. If you made it this far, of course. Good card. Good fights. Salkilld is legit. Watch out for him. He's going to be a champion one day. Goodbye.